Thanks. Yeah. So we'll do like a combined presentation, kind of split into halves. I'll try to be mindful with time, but it probably could easily be in two presentations. But the idea is that we kind of reflect a little on our experience with the acquisition that we did last year when we acquired a company in Finland. And yeah, so let's go. So my name is Kristaps Kvelde. I'm of House Kvelde, and my colleague Daniel of House Borbas. And that's probably the first and only Game of Thrones references that we will use in this presentation. But yeah, so first of all, like a quick show of hands, like how many of the LSPs here consider themselves to be small or medium? So the majority. Great, cool. So I'll look into questions like, am I ready for M&A, whether I'm selling or buying? Why Finland? Why Maris Multilingual, the company that we acquired? How to go about it? Or how did we do that? I guess there's no one recipe for that. And then also kind of the challenges and ingredients for how to make it work. So, yeah. Okay, so obviously I think it really depends on every specific situation and company. If you're thinking of whether to acquire or sell a company, for us it was mostly three things that kind of shine through. So the most one of the most important was timing, where we had to think like, where is the economy now? And when we start to think about the acquisition, that was end of 2021, yes, so the economy was booming, a positive post-pandemic effect, or still within the pandemic, a lot of e-commerce driving the business. So it all seemed very nice and attractive that what can go wrong, and which is perhaps a bit different situation now. Since the beginning of this year, maybe end of the last year, we've seen some recession. What's going on in the translation market? Is there other potential buyers for me as a company, or other companies to acquire? We hear that there's kind of becoming a scarcity of very attractive acquisition targets from larger companies. So that's an interesting one, where this is going to develop. And also personally, from my perspective as the acquirer, am I ready to embark on the journey personally? Because in a small company, me as a CEO, I have to, all the time that I spend on the potential negotiation and invest my time in that, I'm taking my time away from something else. So am I ready for that? And also then the organizational readiness, that's another big one we looked at. I'm lucky to have a CEO and CFO, so taking care of the daily operations of the business, which enables me to think more on the strategic level, and that's a huge factor, I think. It was for us, for sure. But also the readiness in terms of like where the team is, how set the team is on what they do. With every M&A, there's also a possibility when you become a larger company for team members to grow, to develop into new roles that previously are not available perhaps in a smaller organization. So we felt that doing an acquisition could also provide new opportunities for the existing team to grow. And experience and vision. So in our case, we had a bit of successful internal buyout on 2 occasions. I was confident that I know the numbers, I know the figures, and the vision was also quite strong. You want to look at ambition, how ambitious you are in general, what you want to achieve, risk tolerance level, and also how are you going to finance the acquisition. So all of that played a role. And so why Finland? Obviously, Finland is the happiest country in the world, as we all know, and as you can see from the ice hockey team coach. But on economic terms, it's just a bigger economy than Latvia is, of course, and actually it's twice the size as Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia combined. So also the localization maturity of the companies is much higher. There are larger organizations with content development teams, technical documentation departments, and so forth. So There are companies who certainly value the importance of localization. Exports as well. I mean, translation mostly comes from the international business, and Helsinki is a very vibrant startup scene. I'm sure the local Berliners would argue with that, who is the capital of the world for startups, but it's very busy in Nordics. And there are already a lot of strong business ties with the region, within the Nordic-Baltic region. Why Maris Multilingual specifically? So a lucky meeting on the dance floor. We just started to talk with Marit, the owner, at the Nordic Translation Industry Forum, another great event you can attend. It's usually in November. 1 o'clock in the night or so, some of the last people left. We're just starting to talk, and so I just asked, have you thought about selling the business? And she said, oh yes, how did you know? I'm thinking of that. So be open, don't keep a secret if you have some plans, because everyone is kind of thinking about it, everyone is talking about that, but maybe you can put some more intent into that. But as a company, they were very well established, about 22-25 years in business, suitable company size for us to acquire. They were like 3 times smaller than Nordtext, so that's something that we can manage to onboard healthily. Very good reputation among the clients, industry peers, and all around the industry locally. Very importantly, we found common values, that the culture was there. Also the long-term vision for the customers that we want to work with, combining both the LSPs and the local and Nordic direct business. That was very well fitting to us. And as a company, they had adapted very well to the realities of the pandemic and remote work. And we at Nordtext also have very strong remote hybrid culture, so that was a plus. So when all was kind of agreed, we had to figure out how to actually then go about it. So one of the early mistakes that I did was the communication. I was too slow actually in communicating. I was assuming that I'm the only suitor for the company who is interested to buy. Only after a couple of weeks I realized that there are also others with whom Marit is talking with. And of course that's no secret. We didn't have any exclusivity or anything, but I kind of assumed that I'm the only one. So that really hit me. So it's better to ask, of course, and you can never harm you if you ask openly, like what are they thinking in terms of other prospective partners. So trust was established very early. We didn't do any due diligence, also because probably of the deal size. It was not that huge, but still I felt that a large part of the transparency played a role in that we didn't have to spend a lot on the consultants and financial analysis. We just shared openly, and I had previously made a mistake during the internal buyouts. I had experience with where I was focusing only on one financing option, like one bank basically, which refused initially, and then I talked with another. Eventually it took me 4 attempts with 4 different banks before someone financed me. So this time I did not make the same mistakes. Immediately I opened communication with 3 or 4 of them. And the basically only advice we were seeking for externally, professionally, was for the legal framework agreements, the shareholder purchase agreement. You don't want to take care of that yourself, probably. So altogether, it was about 4 to 6 months from the first interest that we identified to actual transfer of the ownership. And just to summarize again on some of the key mistakes or the ingredients that we were figuring out as we went, that it's important to keep the determination from my, as a buyer perspective, to see things through. And what I mean by that is I lost a bit of interest during the process, which might sound very weird, but as soon as I had a yes from the counterpart, I felt like, okay, the deal is done. In reality, there was like so much still to do, still to continue and pursue. And in hindsight, consistency in communication and just keep going till the end is very important. And I think perhaps some CEOs, entrepreneurs might relate to that we're very like hunter type on getting something done, and then your interest kind of just waves off a little bit. But it's important to keep it going. Of course, with all the all the things going on within two small teams. Like, it was a challenge to keep things secret, at least for some time, from the team itself. So it was like a bit difficult at some point actually to remember which person knows what and whom can we tell, because we kind of wanted to do it properly and not to create any anxiety within the team. For sure we could have done a bit better, even though with all the transparency that we had already. But that's something that it must be addressed a lot. And then a succession plan, like Mari stayed as a managing director for 6 months. She was very flexible with that, but it was not as quick as we hoped for hiring a replacement for her. And there's always a choice: do you promote someone internally? Do you hire from outside? We took the latter one, the outside hiree, and it was worth it for sure. To wait and to plan for that, so that's going to be more public soon as well. And yeah, just the communication. Honestly, I think that's the real challenge. It's not the numbers, it's not the finance. It's like keeping the communication going and informed to avoid the anxiety. And if I have to probably like summarize about what's the Nordic way of doing M&A in a small medium company. It's a human-first approach that we have to take care of the people. The selling party is, of course, very interested and concerned what will happen with the employees. Will someone get fired or something? Is this like a cost optimization experiment, or what is it? So be conscious of that. But that was very clear on both sides with us. So human-first, trust and transparency. These, I think, are key components in doing M&As in the Nordics. And with that, I'll pass the clicker to Daniel.
Thank you, Kristaps. So I'd like to walk you through the more practical aspects of our merger. I'm going to run through the benefits that we were hoping to gain from this exercise, the approach and tools that we decided to use, why we decided to stick with Plunet at the center of our operations, and also I'm going to give you a very high-level overview of our Plunet migration timeline. So when I was a child, my grandfather, who used to be an engineer, had this saying that life is but a mountain of porridge and you need to eat your way through it. And that image really stuck with me, not only because porridge mountain sounds delicious, but also because I found there to be two key pieces of truth in there. One, that growth, progress, or any kind of forward motion is essential to life. And two, that even though that mountain of porridge might look overwhelming, you can only progress spoon by spoon. And that's a philosophy that we very much adopted when we sat down to plan this whole merger. So what are the gains that we were hoping to get from taking our newly acquired Finnish team and merging those operations together with our existing Latvian operations? We were going for unified company branding. That communicates, so by taking the Finnish team and rebranding it as Nordtext Finland, we are communicating to our existing and prospective customers not only that Nordtext is expanding, but also that now we have a local Finnish-speaking team ready to service our Finnish clients. Then we also wanted to simplify our processes and tool stack. So in my experience, the fewer tools we use, the easier it is to share knowledge, the easier it is to troubleshoot should someone from the team need help, and why use two tools to get the same job done. Then we were also excited about sharing the resources. So that meant that we took the vendor pool from the Latvian team and from the Finnish team, and we put that together. So that means, so that's like a database of linguists, of DTP specialists, all of the resources that we have available. And by pooling those together, we can look for cost optimization in our project spendings. But that also means that the Finnish team now has better access to HR support, more tech support, more extensive vendor management support, more support from me as head of project management, etc. Then we were also excited about bringing the Finnish and Latvian teams together. So we wanted to facilitate the sharing of best practices and thus making our whole organization stronger. So in terms of our approach and tools, we needed to be mindful with our resources because we're not a huge organization, so we had limited time available to do this. And because of all of the departments that were involved in this migration, this was like a true cross-functional collaboration. So at the center of it all, we set up a shared Kanban board where we added all of the tasks that we could think of. This is a living document. We still keep adding things to it, and we still keep crossing things off the list. And you can see some of the categories that we use for the tasks. We made sure that for each single task we assigned a category. We assigned an owner, depending on which department is affected. And then we also set up milestones, so having key deliverables, having deadlines set that helped us pace ourselves. And then what turned out to be a big part of the planning is mapping out the dependencies between the tasks. Because, for example, we cannot onboard the Finnish PMs to Plunet until we have the customer and the resource information imported to Plunet. So we found that there is this web of dependencies between the tasks that we needed to be careful about. And also active communication. So we had recurring status updates meetings, and also we used the Kanban board and the task there to communicate with each other. So why did we decide to keep Plunet at the center of our operations? The Finnish team has been using their own custom developed project management system, and it has been working fine for them. So why did we decide to move their operations over to Plunet and not the other way around? So the first reason is that Nordtext has been using Plunet for the past 10 years. We love that we have a database at the core of it all. And that includes all our customer information, all our resource information, all our finances. So on the customer side, it's not only the price list, not only the customer contacts, but also the resource files are saved in the customer folders. We use the memos and the dossier to share specific instructions for the customers. Same with the resources. We have, in addition to the resource information, we also have the quality score, so how linguists rated other linguists' work, and also the resource assessment, so how the PMs rated the experience working with that specific resource, which is super valuable in our team of PMs. And finances, we do all our invoicing in Plunet, and we do data visualization both inside Plunet, and we also regularly export data and have our own dashboard set up with Power BI. And speaking of dashboards, the PM dashboard, I love that function. It saves us a lot of time. It's super convenient that the PMs can just log in and see exactly what they need to do. And of course, the templates. We use order templates, job templates. We have many workflows. We have the integration templates with the TMSs. It saves us a lot of time. And why not? Like, why would you spend time copying and pasting the same information over and over again when you can just set up a template and just tweak it as needed for the project at hand? The customer portal, that's also a part of Plunet that we use extensively. And I am especially happy about the request workflow. So having that process built in, that our PMs can generate quotes for the clients can log into their portal and see the quotes that are pending. They can accept or reject quotes in there. It's great. And as I mentioned, the TMS integrations. So for us, that's Phrase TMS and MemoQ primarily. And it's a huge time saver that the PMs can get so much done without even having to leave the Plunet infrastructure. So let me show you the timeline that we have been following for this migration. I'm going to preface this by saying that this is very much still a work in progress, so we're kind of in the middle of the process now. We haven't completed it yet, and also that each of these milestones represent many, many more tasks that are not listed here. So we started our migration by moving over the customer and the resource data from the project management tool that the Finnish team has been using over to Plunet. There weren't that many profiles to talk about, so we didn't even spend time trying to automate this. It was just manual data entry. We took a couple of days, added the information, and it was done. That part was easy. This part wasn't too easy, setting up the invoicing workflow, and that comes from the fact that our Latvian team uses multiple company codes in a kind of unorthodox way, which works perfectly with our invoicing. But as soon as we added another company code for the Finnish team, that old system just broke. So we have been trying different scenarios. We have been in active communication with Plunet support, and the solution now seems to be setting up duplicate profiles for those resources that we work with, both with the Latvian team and the Finnish team, which is not as nice and neat and elegant as we hoped it would be, but at least it works. And then once that's done, we are going to move on to looking into how we can use the API to connect Plunet to the e-invoicing system that we use in Finland. And then once that's done, we are going to be onboarding the PMs. I am not expecting this to be a very complicated affair. I'm going to put together a task force of our most experienced Latvian users, Latvian Plunet users, and we are going to put together a training agenda with specific sessions assigned to specific topics in Plunet. Those are all going to be video sessions recorded for future reference, and we are also going to set up a dedicated chat where the Finnish PMs, if they get stuck, they can ask questions to the more experienced Latvian PMs. And then we will move on to onboarding our vendors. This is going to be handled by our vendor management department, and it's going to be a webinar and or a newsletter blast. And we want to make sure that the resources that we have been working with know how to get paid and how to work with Plunet, so there's no disruption there. And then once that's all done, we are going to be rolling it out to all of our customers. For those that don't use the customer portal, it's going to be a minimal change. It's just going to be a slightly different layout for the quotes that they are receiving. But we also want to promote using the customer portal as much as possible. So in conclusion, managing a merger like this, even on a relatively smaller scale like ours, is a complex affair. There are many moving parts. Things might not turn out as elegant or as neat as you hoped it would be. So my advice to you is to plan thoroughly, but at the same time, be ready to change course because obstacles will come up. And remember that when that mountain in front of you looks overwhelming, just keep progressing spoon by spoon. That's it. Thank you.